I stood in the pouring rain outside the house, where I raised my son Thomas, clutching a small suitcase in my trembling hands. It had been 3 days since we buried him. Amanda, my daughter-in-law, had just changed the locks. A police officer stood beside me, asking me to leave. Through the window, I could see Amanda watching with a cold smile spreading across her face. My entire world had collapsed in 72 hours, and I had nowhere to go. The rain soaked through my coat as I tried to explain to the officer that this was my home. My voice shook with desperation and disbelief. Officer Martinez looked at me with genuine sympathy in his eyes, but his hands were tied by the law. "Ma'am, I understand this is difficult," he said gently, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. "But according to county records, this house is legally in Amanda Porter's name. Your son placed it in joint tenancy with his wife 5 years ago. Without your name on the deed, I cannot help you enter the property." The words hit me like physical blows. Joint tenancy. 5 years ago. Thomas had never mentioned this to me. I was 67 years old, standing in a storm, realizing I had nowhere to sleep that night. "But I live here," I whispered. "I've lived here for 3 years. Do you have any documentation proving residency? Mail addressed to you here? A lease agreement?" Officer Martinez asked, though I could tell from his tone he already knew the answer. I shook my head. All my mail went to a post office box, something Amanda had suggested when I moved in. She said it would be more secure. Now I understood why. She had been planning this. My mind reeled back to 2 weeks earlier. Thomas had collapsed at his office downtown, a massive heart attack at just 42 years old. I had rushed to Mercy General Hospital, my heart pounding with terror. By the time I arrived, they had him in the emergency room. I held his hand as the machines beeped and the doctors worked frantically. His hand was still warm, but his eyes never opened again. He died 3 hours later, with me whispering that I loved him, that everything would be okay, lies we tell the dying to comfort them. Amanda had arrived at the hospital late, her phone pressed to her ear. She wore a business suit and expensive heels. When the doctor told us Thomas was gone, she had cried, but it seemed rehearsed somehow. Distant. She spent more time texting than grieving. The funeral had been strange too. Amanda wore a designer black dress and jewelry I had never seen before. She barely shed a tear during the service. The church was full of people I did not recognize, business associates mostly. Amanda stood at the front, accepting condolences like she was hosting a networking event. Now, standing in the rain, I finally called my best friend, Linda Chen. "No, wait, I cannot use that name. My best friend, Linda Morrison," she answered on the second ring. "Caroline? What's wrong?" "Linda, I need help," I managed to say before my voice broke completely. 20 minutes later, Linda pulled up in her old sedan. She took one look at me, soaking wet and shaking, and immediately helped me into her car. She did not ask questions until we were safely inside her small apartment across town. "What happened?" Linda asked, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders and putting on a kettle for tea. I explained everything. How I had been living with Thomas and Amanda for the past 3 years, ever since my arthritis made it too difficult to manage my second-floor apartment. How Thomas had insisted I move in, said he wanted to take care of me. How he had promised I would always have a home with him. Thomas always said, "I'd be taken care of," I told Linda, my hands wrapped around a warm mug. He said after everything I did for him, raising him alone after his father died, putting him through college, he would never let me struggle. Linda's face was tight with anger. "This is wrong, Caroline. Legally wrong. You have rights. But did I?" That was the question that haunted me through that first sleepless night on Linda's couch. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Amanda. My hands shook as I read it. "Clean out your room by tomorrow noon, or I'm donating everything. You have 12 hours. "We have to go now," I told Linda, showing her the message. We arrived at the house at 9 in the morning. Amanda's car was in the driveway, a sleek new Mercedes I had never seen before. Where had that come from? Thomas drove a modest Honda. Amanda answered the door with a smile that made my blood run cold. Caroline, so glad you could make it. I've been packing your things. She stepped aside, and I saw garbage bags lined up in the hallway. I figured you'd want your stuff. I rushed past her to what had been my room for 3 years. The closet was empty. The drawers were empty. Everything I owned had been thrown into black garbage bags. I opened one and found my clothes wadded up, wrinkled and damp. Another bag held books and trinkets. A third held photographs. My hands frantically sorted through the bags, looking for one specific item. My mother's wedding ring, a simple gold band with 3 small diamonds. It was worth about $5,000, but its value to me was beyond measure. It was all I had left of her. It was not in any of the bags. Looking for something? Amanda asked from the doorway. She was leaning against the frame, examining her manicured nails. My mother's ring. Where is it? Ring? Amanda's eyebrows rose in mock confusion. I don't know anything about a ring. Maybe you lost it. You have been getting forgetful at your age, Caroline. I kept it in the drawer by my bed. It was there 3 days ago. Amanda shrugged. Prove I took it. This is my house. Everything in it belongs to me. That's what Thomas wanted. Thomas would never want this, I said, my voice breaking. Wouldn't he? Amanda's smile widened. Thomas left everything to me, Caroline. The house, the bank accounts, the life insurance, his investments, everything. You're not mentioned in his will. Not once. You know what that tells me? It tells me my husband didn't want you to have anything. Linda had been standing in the hallway, and now she stepped forward. You're a monster. I'm a widow, Amanda corrected smoothly. A grieving widow who needs time to process her loss without her mentally unstable mother-in-law harassing her. Now, please take your garbage bags and leave my property. We loaded the bags into Linda's car in silence. As we drove away, I looked back at the house where Thomas took his first steps, where he learned to ride a bicycle in the driveway, where we had Christmas mornings and birthday parties, where I had believed I would be safe. That house was gone now. That life was gone. And I was beginning to understand that Amanda had planned this all along. The next morning, Linda drove me to the office of Harold Peters, an attorney who specialized in estate law. His office was in a modest building downtown, and the waiting room smelled like old coffee and legal documents. Harold was in his 50s, with kind eyes and a professional manner that immediately put me at ease. I explained the situation, my words tumbling out in a rush. When I finished, Harold leaned back in his chair and steepled his fingers. Tell me about your financial relationship with your son, he said. I helped him buy that house, I said. 15 years ago, Thomas was 27 and wanted to buy his first home. He had good credit, but not enough for a down payment. I gave him $30,000 from my savings. It was everything I had at the time. Do you have documentation? I nodded. I have the canceled check. It's in one of my bags. Thank goodness I had kept financial records. Harold spent the next week investigating. When I returned to his office, his expression was grave. Caroline, I need to be honest with you. This situation is complicated. He laid out the facts with painful clarity. The house was now worth $600,000. Thomas's will, written 3 years ago, shortly after I moved in, left everything to Amanda. There was a life insurance policy for $500,000 with Amanda as the sole beneficiary. Thomas had an investment portfolio worth $350,000, also with Amanda's name attached. The total estate value was approximately $1.4 million. What about the $30,000 I gave him? I asked. That was 15 years ago, Harold explained gently. It was a gift, not a loan. And even if we could argue it was a loan, the statute of limitations would likely prevent any claim. For financial elder abuse, we would need to show recent exploitation, not something from 15 years ago. My head was spinning. What about the ring? Without proof, she took it. And without proof of its value, or even its existence, there's nothing we can do. So I have nothing? How much do you have in savings currently? $12,000. And my Social Security is $900 a month. Harold's face showed his concern. That's not enough to rent a decent apartment in this city. Have you looked into senior housing? I called. The wait list is 8 months long. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Harold said, I'll keep looking for options, Caroline, but I need to be honest. Amanda has covered her tracks well. Everything is legal. Thomas made these decisions of his own free will, as far as we can tell. That same week, Amanda filed for a restraining order against me. I received the court documents on a Tuesday afternoon. Amanda claimed I had been harassing her, threatening her, sending angry text messages. The petition included screenshots of text messages I had supposedly sent. I never sent these, I told Harold, showing him the documents. The messages were vicious, calling Amanda names, threatening to make her life miserable. These came from your phone number, Harold pointed out. No, they didn't. Look at my phone. I showed him my message history. The texts were not there. Harold frowned. She must have created these somehow. Maybe used a spoofing app to make it look like they came from your number. But proving it was impossible. The judge granted a temporary restraining order. I was not allowed within 500 feet of Amanda or the house. 2 days later, I made a terrible mistake. I did not understand the exact boundaries of 500 feet. Amanda had mentioned on social media that she would be at the bank downtown to handle Thomas's life insurance payout. I wanted to see who else would be there, whether there was anyone who could answer my questions about what Thomas had really wanted. I stood across the street from the bank, more than a block away by my estimation. I was not trying to confront Amanda. I just wanted to observe. Amanda saw me. She pulled out her phone, and within 10 minutes, police arrived. They arrested me for violating the restraining order. I spent that night in a jail cell, the worst night of my life. The cell was cold and smelled like disinfectant and despair. I sat on a thin mattress and wondered how my life had come to this. Linda bailed me out the next morning. She looked exhausted. This cost me $400 I don't have, she said, not angrily, but with resignation. Caroline, you have to be more careful. That afternoon, a local newspaper ran a small story. Woman arrested for harassing grieving widow. It did not use my name, but everyone in our community knew who it was about. The article painted me as unstable, unable to accept that my son's wife wanted to move on with her life. My phone started ringing. People from church, neighbors, friends of Thomas. But they were not calling to support me. They were calling to tell me I needed to stop, to let Amanda grieve in peace, to accept reality. Amanda's campaign against me expanded like poison spreading through water. She posted on social media, on every platform she could find. I did not use social media much, but Linda showed me the posts. Dealing with my late husband's mentally unstable mother, who won't accept that he didn't want her in his life, one post read, She's been stalking me, harassing me, and I'm genuinely afraid for my safety. Please keep me in your prayers during this difficult time. The post had hundreds of comments, all sympathetic to Amanda. Stay strong. So sorry you're going through this. Some people can't let go. Nobody questioned her story. Nobody asked for my side. Amanda went further. She contacted Pastor William at our church, the church where I had worshipped for 20 years, where Thomas had been baptized, where we held his funeral service. I'm worried about Caroline, she told the pastor, according to what he later shared with me in a tense conversation. She's not acting rationally. She's making wild accusations against me, claiming I stole from her, claiming I somehow tricked Thomas. I think she might be experiencing dementia or some kind of mental breakdown. She needs help, but she won't listen to me. Pastor William, meaning well, called me. Caroline, I think you should consider seeing a doctor. Amanda is concerned about you. Amanda is lying, I said. She's destroying my reputation so nobody will believe me when I tell them what she's done. There was a long pause. Caroline, grief can make us see things that aren't there. It can make us angry at the wrong people. Maybe you should talk to a counselor. Even the pastor doubted me. Several friends from church stopped returning my calls. When I saw them at the grocery store, they would look away, hurrying down different aisles to avoid me. I was being erased from my own community. Meanwhile, my situation with Linda was becoming impossible. She was kind and generous, but her apartment was tiny. She slept on the couch so I could have her bedroom, though I insisted we should switch. We were both exhausted, getting on each other's nerves despite our best efforts. "I can only keep doing this for a few more weeks," Linda admitted one evening. "My landlord is asking questions, and honestly, Caroline, I'm struggling. My car needs repairs, I have medical bills, and my job doesn't pay enough." I felt like a burden. At 67, I was homeless and dependent on a friend who could barely support herself. I spent hours each day looking for housing. Studio apartments in safe neighborhoods cost at least $1,200 per month, plus utilities. My $900 Social Security check would not cover it. I would need to find work, but who would hire a 67-year-old woman with arthritis? I applied for low-income senior housing. The woman at the housing authority was sympathetic, but clear. "The wait list is currently 8 months. And that's if you qualify. Your $12,000 in savings might put you over the asset limit, so I need to spend all my money to qualify for help?" "I'm sorry," she said, and she genuinely seemed to be. I started looking at shelters. The thought made me physically ill, but I was running out of options. Then, Amanda's most vicious attack came. She petitioned the court to have me declared legally incompetent. The legal documents arrived on a Friday afternoon, and I sat in Linda's apartment reading them with growing horror. Amanda claimed I was a danger to myself and others. She cited the harassment, the stalking, the threatening messages. She included statements from people who claimed I had acted confused or erratic. She even produced a statement from a doctor I had never met, a psychiatrist named Dr. Philip Brennan, who suggested that based on Amanda's descriptions of my behavior, I might be experiencing cognitive decline or mental illness. If the court declared me incompetent, Amanda could have me involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility, or worse, placed in a nursing home where she would control my finances and my life. Harold was blunt when I called him. "This is brilliant, legally speaking. If you're declared incompetent, you cannot contest the will. You cannot make legal claims. You cannot manage your own affairs. She's trying to neutralize you completely. What can I do? You need to undergo a psychiatric evaluation from an independent doctor. We need to prove you're mentally sound. But Caroline, it's expensive. Probably $900. $900. My entire monthly income." "I'll do it," I said. What choice did I have? The evaluation was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I scraped together the money, taking nearly everything from my dwindling savings. The competency hearing was set for 2 weeks after that. The psychiatric evaluation was exhausting. Dr. Sarah Martinez asked me hundreds of questions over 3 hours. She tested my memory, my reasoning, my emotional state. I broke down crying at one point, overwhelmed by stress and fear. "Does crying mean I'm unstable?" I asked her, wiping my eyes. "It means you're human," she said gently. "You're under tremendous stress. That's completely normal." But I worried. Would my tears be seen as evidence of mental illness? Would my sadness over Thomas's death be twisted into something pathological? Waiting for the results was torture. In the meantime, Linda received a phone call from her landlord, Mr. Raymond Kowalski. His tone was stern. "Linda, I've received some concerning information about your house guest," he said. "I've been told she's mentally unstable, potentially dangerous. I'm not comfortable with her staying in my building." "Who told you that?" Linda demanded. "Amanda Porter. She's married to my nephew. She's very worried about this woman." Of course. Of course Amanda had connections to Linda's landlord. Of course she would use them. Mr. Kowalski gave Linda an ultimatum. I had to leave within 1 week, or Linda would face eviction. Linda told me that evening, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Caroline. I don't have a choice. If I lose this apartment, I have nowhere to go either." "I understand," I said, though my heart was breaking. You've already done more than anyone could ask. I was down to $8,000 in savings. I had spent $4,000 on legal fees, the psychiatric evaluation, and helping Linda with household expenses. I had 1 week to find somewhere to live, and I had no idea where to go. That night, I drove to the cemetery where Thomas was buried. I sat beside his grave in the darkness, talking to him like he could hear me. "Thomas, I don't understand what happened," I whispered. "Did you really want this? Did you really want me to have nothing? Or did she do something to you? Did she trick you? Did she hurt you?" The stone was cold and silent. The inscription read, "Thomas Michael Porter, beloved husband and son, gone too soon." Beloved son. That part was true. But the rest, I was beginning to doubt everything about the rest. The psychiatric evaluation results arrived on a Monday morning. I tore open the envelope with shaking hands. "Doctor, Martinez's report was clear and thorough. I showed no signs of cognitive impairment, no evidence of mental illness, no indication of being a danger to myself or others. I was experiencing situational stress and grief, which were entirely normal given my circumstances. It was a small victory, but I clung to it desperately." The competency hearing still proceeded as scheduled. Amanda's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Drummond, argued that one evaluation was not sufficient, that my behavior pattern showed clear signs of instability. At the hearing, Amanda sat in the front row, dressed conservatively, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. She performed beautifully. When called to testify, she spoke in a soft, trembling voice about how worried she was about me, how she only wanted me to get proper care, how Thomas would have wanted his mother to be safe and healthy. "I'm not trying to hurt her," Amanda said, her voice breaking. "I'm trying to help her. I loved Thomas so much, and she was his mother. I want her to be okay." It was an Oscar-worthy performance. I watched the judge's face and saw sympathy there, not for me, but for Amanda. The judge did not declare me incompetent, but she did not fully vindicate me either. Instead, she ordered supervised visits with a social worker to monitor my mental state over the next 3 months. Each visit would cost me $75, money I did not have. The court finds that, while Miss Porter appears mentally competent at this time, the judge said, there are enough concerning factors to warrant monitoring. This is for her own protection, for my own protection. The words rang hollow. That week, my time at Linda's apartment ran out. I moved to a motel called the Sunset Inn on the east side of town. It cost $60 per night, which meant I could afford 1 week before my savings ran out completely. The motel was not in a safe neighborhood. The parking lot was littered with broken glass. The walls were thin, and I could hear arguments and loud music at all hours. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and mildew, but it had a bed and a lock on the door, and that was more than I might have soon. Amanda somehow discovered where I was staying. 2 days after I checked in, the motel manager, a tired-looking man named Frank, knocked on my door. "Ma'am, I need to ask you to leave," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Why?" "I paid for the week. I got a call. Someone said you're mentally unstable, that you might be dangerous. I can't have that kind of liability here." "Who called you?" He shrugged. "Some woman. Said she was your daughter-in-law. Said she was worried about you." I wanted to scream. Instead, I quietly packed my bags and left. Frank refunded me for the remaining days at least. 4 days' worth. $240. I had nowhere else to go. Linda let me sleep in her car for 2 nights, parked on different streets each night. I was terrified someone would see me, would call the police, would arrest me again. I was 67 years old, sleeping in a sedan, using gas station bathrooms to wash up. How had this become my life? Harold called me on the 3rd day. His voice was regretful. "Caroline, I need another $2,000 to continue your case. I've exhausted the retainer, and the investigation is expensive." I was down to $3,000 total. If I paid him, I would have $1,000 left. $1,000 between me and absolute destitution. "I can't afford it," I whispered. There was a long silence. Then I'm afraid I have to withdraw from your case. I'm sorry, Caroline. I wish things were different. Without a lawyer, I was completely helpless. I had no legal representation, no advocate, no protection against Amanda's attacks. The notice about Thomas's will going through probate arrived that same week. The formal reading was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 10 in the morning at the office of Gerald Thompson, the estate attorney handling Thomas's affairs. As Thomas's mother, I had to be notified even if I was not named in the will. This was my last hope. Maybe, just maybe, Thomas had left me something. A small inheritance, a personal item, anything that would show he had not completely abandoned me. During this terrible time, Harold's private investigator, Marcus Reynolds, was still working on the case. He had told Harold he would continue investigating on his own time because something about Amanda bothered him. Marcus called me on Monday evening. "Caroline, I found something. Can we meet?" We met at a coffee shop downtown. Marcus was a former police detective, now in his 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I've been digging into Amanda's background," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "She's been married twice before Thomas. Did you know that?" I shook my head, stunned. Husband number 1 was named Gregory Hartley. They married when Amanda was 23. Gregory died 3 years later, fell down the stairs in their home. He was 38, healthy. Death was ruled accidental. Amanda collected $200,000 in life insurance. My hands went cold. Husband number 2 was Robert Chen. He paused. "I'm sorry, I need to use a different name." Husband number 2 was Robert Sullivan. They married 5 years after Gregory died. Robert died 4 years into the marriage. Car accident, drove off a mountain road. He was 45. Death ruled accidental. Amanda collected $600,000 in life insurance. 3 husbands, I whispered. All dead, all with life insurance. All relatively young, all deaths that could have been staged, Marcus continued. And here's the interesting part. Amanda has a criminal record under her maiden name, Amanda Hartley. 23 years ago, she was arrested for insurance fraud. Charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence. 15 years ago, she was investigated for forging her mother's signature on property documents to sell her mother's house while her mother was in a nursing home. Again, no charges filed. She's a con artist. I think she's worse than that, Marcus said grimly. He pulled out more papers. I obtained Thomas's medical records. It wasn't easy, and wasn't exactly legal, so this can't be used in court. But Thomas had no history of heart disease. He was in good health. His last physical, 6 months before he died, showed perfect cardiovascular health. Then why did he have a heart attack? I looked at the toxicology report from the hospital, standard tox screen, but there were elevated levels of potassium in his blood. Very high levels. What does that mean? Potassium poisoning can cause heart attacks, Marcus explained. It's hard to detect because potassium is naturally in the body, but very high levels, administered over time, can cause cardiac arrest. It's a method that's been used in murders before. The coffee shop seemed to spin around me. You think Amanda poisoned Thomas? I think it's possible. And I think she's done it before. He showed me more documents. Amanda has a boyfriend. His name is Derek Fisher. He has a criminal record: assault, fraud, extortion. And here's the kicker. I found photos of Amanda and Derek together during her second marriage. 2 months before Robert Sullivan died, they were seen together at a hotel. They work together, I said, the pieces falling into place. They find wealthy men, marry them, kill them, collect the insurance. That's my theory, Marcus said, but I can't prove it. Not yet, and without proof, we can't go to the police. That night, I stayed in a different motel, a place called the Riverside Motor Lodge. It was $45 per night, even cheaper than the Sunset Inn, and even more dangerous. But I was running out of money and options. I fell asleep around midnight, exhausted and terrified. I woke to the sound of my door being forced open. Someone had broken the lock. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and saw a dark figure going through my belongings. I screamed, and the figure ran. The police came. They took a report. The intruder had stolen my folder of documents, everything I had left, the canceled check proving I gave Thomas the down payment, copies of Thomas's childhood photos, my mother's documents, everything. My laptop was smashed, destroyed beyond repair. Probably a random theft, the officer said, looking around the dingy motel room. This area has a lot of break-ins. But I knew better. This was Amanda, or Derek. They were destroying any evidence I might have, leaving me with absolutely nothing. I filed a police report, but the officer's tone made it clear nothing would come of it. Just another crime in a bad neighborhood. I sat on the motel bed after the police left, surrounded by my scattered belongings, and realized I had hit absolute rock bottom. No money, no home, no evidence, no lawyer, no hope. The will reading was tomorrow. It was all I had left. I borrowed a black dress from Linda for the will reading. It was too big on me. I had lost weight from stress and irregular meals. Linda helped me pin it to fit better. She offered to come with me, but I told her no. This was something I needed to face alone. Gerald Thompson's office was in a prestigious building downtown, all marble and dark wood. I felt completely out of place as I walked through the elegant lobby. I arrived 15 minutes early and sat in the waiting area, my hands folded in my lap, trying to appear calm. Amanda arrived precisely at 10 o'clock. She wore a black Chanel suit and pearls. Beside her was a man I recognized from Marcus's photos, Derek Fisher. He was handsome in a slick way, with styled dark hair and an expensive watch. They looked like they belonged in this building. I looked like someone who had wandered in from the street. Amanda saw me, and her lips curved into a cruel smile. "Still homeless, Caroline?" she said, loudly enough for the receptionist to hear. "How pathetic. I hope you didn't come here expecting charity." Derek laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "Some people just don't know when to give up." I said nothing. I kept my eyes forward, my jaw clenched, determined not to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Gerald Thompson's secretary called us into the conference room. It was elegant, with a long table and leather chairs. Gerald sat at the head of the table, a distinguished man in his 70s with white hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He gestured for us to sit. Amanda and Derek sat on one side of the table. I sat alone on the other side, an empty chair beside me where Thomas should have been. Gerald opened a leather folder and pulled out several documents. "We are here for the reading of the last will and testament of Thomas Michael Porter," he began formally. "Before we begin, I want to confirm that all interested parties are present. Amanda Porter, the widow, Caroline Porter, the mother, and Derek Fisher, who is here at Amanda's request, though not mentioned in the will." "Get on with it," Amanda said impatiently. Gerald's expression remained neutral and professional. "Very well. I'll read the relevant sections." He cleared his throat and began. "I, Thomas Michael Porter, being of sound mind and body, do hereby make this my last will and testament. First, I leave my house, located at 427 Maple Drive, to my beloved wife Amanda. The property is currently valued at approximately $600,000. Amanda smiled. Second, I leave all bank accounts in my name, totaling approximately $50,000, to my wife Amanda. Third, I leave my investment portfolio, currently valued at $350,000, to my wife Amanda. Fourth, I leave my life insurance policy, in the amount of $500,000, to my wife Amanda. Gerald continued listing personal belongings, Thomas's car, his watch collection, all going to Amanda. The total was staggering. Amanda would receive approximately $1.5 million. Then Gerald reached a section that made my heart sink even further. To my mother, Caroline Ann Porter, I leave my gratitude for raising me and for the sacrifices she made throughout my childhood. However, as she is financially provided for through her own means, I leave her no monetary inheritance. I trust she will understand this decision. The words were like knives. Financially provided for. No monetary inheritance. I trust she will understand. Tears streamed down my face. I could not stop them. Amanda's laugh filled the room. It was high and triumphant and cruel. Did you hear that, Caroline? Gratitude. That's what you get. He left you his gratitude. She turned to Derek. Can you believe it? She came here thinking she'd get money. Derek joined in. Hope you enjoy being homeless, because she made sure you get nothing. Amanda stood up, energized by her victory. You'll die alone in some state-funded nursing home, Caroline. Some place that smells like urine and despair. Thomas didn't want you to have a single penny. He saw what I saw, that you're just a bitter old woman trying to take what isn't yours. I could not speak, could not move, could not defend myself. I sat frozen, tears falling onto my borrowed dress. Gerald Thompson cleared his throat loudly, his expression stern. Mrs. Porter, please sit down. We are not finished. Amanda waved her hand dismissively. What else is there? I got everything. Actually, Gerald said, his voice taking on a different quality, harder somehow. There's one final section. The room went still. Amanda slowly sat back down, her smile faltering slightly. Gerald reached into his folder and pulled out additional documents, these in a sealed envelope. These are Thomas's personal letters to me, written 2 years ago and held in sealed custody per his specific instructions. He broke the seal and unfolded several pages of handwriting. Thomas gave me explicit instructions that if he died before the age of 50, I was to read these letters aloud, at the will reading, in the presence of all parties. My heart began to pound. Gerald adjusted his glasses and began to read in Thomas's words. If you are hearing this, it means I died young. It means Amanda got what she wanted. Gerald paused, then continued. I need to say this while I still can, while I am still alive to write these words. My wife Amanda scares me. I believe she may harm me for my money. I have discovered her past. I know about Gregory Hartley and Robert Sullivan. I know what happened to them. Amanda's face went white. I discovered Amanda's previous marriages 6 months ago. I hired a private investigator after I found text messages on her phone, messages to a man named Derek Fisher. The messages suggested they were planning something. Planning me. Derek half stood from his chair, his hand on Amanda's shoulder. This is ridiculous. You can't. Sit down, Mr. Fisher, Gerald said coldly. I am reading a legal document. Gerald continued reading Thomas's letter. I wanted to leave Amanda immediately, but she threatened me. She said if I divorced her, she would hurt my mother. She said she knew where Mom was vulnerable, that she could make Mom's life hell. She said she would destroy Mom's reputation, make everyone think Mom was crazy, and that no one would believe Mom over her. My hands covered my mouth. Thomas had known. He had known and tried to protect me. So I did what Amanda wanted. I put everything in her name. I wrote a will, leaving everything to her. But I also wrote this letter, and I took out additional insurance. Mom, if you are hearing this, I am so sorry. I was trying to protect you. I thought if I gave Amanda everything she wanted, she would leave you alone. I was wrong. I should have gone to the police. I should have been braver. Tears poured down my face. But they were different tears now. Thomas had loved me. He had tried to save me the only way he knew how. Gerald looked directly at Amanda, and his voice was hard as stone. Thomas also wrote something else. He wrote that his mother, Caroline, is not dependent on him financially. In fact, he stated that she never told him about her own wealth because she wanted him to be independent, to make his own way in the world without relying on family money. Amanda's voice was shrill. What wealth? She's broke. She's been living like a homeless person. Gerald turned to me, and for the first time his expression was kind. Mrs. Porter, Thomas hired me 2 years ago to investigate your finances. He wanted to ensure that you would be protected if anything happened to him. He discovered that your late husband, James Porter, established a substantial trust fund for you before his death 30 years ago. I nodded slowly. This was true. My husband James had been a successful engineer. When he died suddenly of an aneurysm at 42, he left me the house, some savings, and a trust fund he had been building. The trust was managed by a firm in Boston. I had never touched it, living modestly on James's life insurance and later my Social Security. I had been saving the trust for absolute emergencies, or to leave to Thomas. The trust has been managed conservatively by Whitmore Financial in Boston, Gerald continued. It has grown substantially over 30 years. As of last month, the trust is valued at $2.7 million. The number hung in the air like thunder. Amanda made a strangled sound. Derek's face went from confused to furious. "That's impossible," Amanda shrieked. "She's been living with us like a pauper, sleeping in our guest room. She had nothing." "She chose to live modestly," Gerald said. "That was her decision. But Thomas knew the truth. And because he knew you would try to take everything, Mrs. Porter, he made additional arrangements." Gerald pulled out more documents. Thomas changed his life insurance beneficiary 3 months before his death. The policy for $500,000 that you already claimed. Mrs. Porter, that was the policy he kept in your name to keep you satisfied. But there was a second policy. My heart stopped. Thomas took out an additional life insurance policy 14 months ago, right after he discovered your history. The policy is for $1 million. The beneficiary is Caroline Ann Porter, his mother. The room exploded. Amanda screamed, a sound of pure rage. She lunged across the table toward Gerald, but Derek grabbed her. Papers flew everywhere. "You lying witch!" Amanda shrieked at me. "You had money all along. You let me think you were helpless." "I was helpless," I said quietly, finding my voice at last. "Not because of money, but because of grief. Because I trusted you. Because I thought we were family." Amanda's face twisted with hatred. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed. Derek caught her as she fainted, her body going limp in his arms. Gerald was already on his phone, calling security, and I sat there, surrounded by the ruins of Amanda's plans, surrounded by the proof of my son's love. And finally, I understood. Thomas had saved me after all. Security arrived within seconds, responding to Gerald's call. Derek was trying to revive Amanda, patting her face and calling her name. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open, and immediately began sobbing dramatically. "This is too much," she wailed. "I can't take this stress. My heart." But Gerald was not paying attention to her performance. He had made a second phone call, and now 2 police detectives entered the conference room. Detective Sarah Williams and Detective James Rodriguez, both from the Homicide Division. "What's going on?" Derek demanded. "Why are the police here?" Detective Williams looked at Gerald, who nodded. She turned to Amanda and Derek. "Amanda Porter and Derek Fisher, you are both under investigation for the suspected murder of Thomas Michael Porter. We have evidence that suggests his death was not from natural causes." Amanda stopped crying instantly. Her face went from grief-stricken to calculating in a heartbeat. "That's insane," she said. "My husband had a heart attack. The hospital said so." Detective Rodriguez stepped forward. "The hospital reported a heart attack, yes. But they also noted unusually high levels of potassium in his system. At the time, this was attributed to medical intervention. But we've since learned that potassium poisoning can cause cardiac arrest and is difficult to detect." Gerald handed the detectives a folder. "Thomas instructed me to give this to law enforcement if he died before age 50. It contains his suspicions about his wife, his research into her previous marriages, and his concerns about Derek Fisher." Marcus Reynolds entered the room. "I had not even known he was in the building. He must have been waiting." "I've been investigating Mrs. Porter for the past 3 weeks, Marcus said. "I've documented her relationship with Derek Fisher, which predates her marriage to Thomas. I've also uncovered evidence suggesting similar patterns in her previous marriages." Amanda's lawyer instincts kicked in. She stood up, smoothing her suit. "I'm not saying another word without my attorney," she said coldly. All traces of the grieving widow were gone, but Derek was not as composed. He was panicking. "This is your fault," he hissed at Amanda. "You said this would work. You said the old lady had nothing. You said no one would know." "Shut up, Derek," Amanda snapped. But Derek could not stop. The pressure of the moment, the fear of prison, it all came pouring out. "You promised me this would be easy. You said we'd have everything in 6 months, you said." He realized what he was saying and stopped abruptly. Detective Williams was writing everything down. "Thomas Porter's body will be exhumed for a full toxicology examination," she said. "We'll be looking specifically for evidence of long-term potassium administration. We'll also be reopening investigations into the deaths of Gregory Hartley and Robert Sullivan." Amanda's face was a mask of rage, but she said nothing more. "You have the right to remain silent," Detective Rodriguez began, pulling out handcuffs. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." They arrested both Amanda and Derek right there in the conference room. As they led Amanda past me, she stopped and looked at me with pure hatred. "You think you've won?" she whispered. "You're still just a pathetic old woman. Thomas is still dead. I still took him from you." "Yes," I said quietly. "You did. And you'll pay for that for the rest of your life." They took her away. I sat in the conference room for a long time after everyone left. Gerald sat with me, giving me space to process everything. "What happens now?" I finally asked. "Now," Gerald said, "we execute Thomas's true wishes. The life insurance company has already been notified. The $1 million policy will be paid out to you within 30 days. As for the house and other assets, once Amanda is convicted, those assets will likely be seized as proceeds of crime. You'll be able to file a civil lawsuit to recover them. And my mother's ring? We'll add that to the list of stolen property. If it's found in Amanda's possession, it will be returned to you." Over the next days and weeks, the story exploded across local news. Widow arrested for husband's murder. Black widow suspect caught after 3 suspicious deaths. Mother vindicated. After daughter-in-law arrested. My phone rang constantly. People who had shunned me now called to apologize. Church members who had believed Amanda's lies now wanted to make amends. Even Pastor William called, his voice heavy with regret. "I should have listened to you, Caroline. I should have seen through her. I'm so sorry." The restraining order was immediately dissolved. My record was cleared. The arrest for violating the order was expunged. Linda came to visit me at the small apartment I rented with an advance on the insurance money. "I never doubted you," she said, hugging me tightly. "I knew you were telling the truth." "I know you did. You saved my life, Linda. Literally." The full toxicology report came back 4 weeks later. Thomas's body showed evidence of long-term potassium poisoning administered in doses over approximately 6 months. Enough to weaken his heart, enough to eventually cause a massive cardiac arrest. The medical examiner ruled his death a homicide. Amanda's previous husbands were exhumed as well. Gregory Hartley showed signs of sedative overdose before his fall down the stairs. Robert Sullivan's car accident came after he had been poisoned with antifreeze, which would have affected his coordination and judgment. Amanda and Derek were charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and multiple counts of conspiracy, insurance fraud, and theft. The trial took place 8 months later. I attended every day, sitting in the front row of the courtroom. I wanted Amanda to see me, to know that she had not broken me. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Financial records showing Amanda and Derek's relationship dating back 15 years. Text messages discussing the plan and the payout. Testimony from medical experts about the poisonings. Testimony from an ex-girlfriend of Derek's who said he had once bragged about helping his girl get rid of problems. Most damning was Derek himself. Faced with the evidence, he made a deal with prosecutors. In exchange for testifying against Amanda, his sentence would be reduced. He told the court everything. How he and Amanda had met in their 20s, how they had conceived the plan together, how Amanda would marry wealthy men and Derek would help eliminate them when the time was right. Amanda sat stone-faced through most of the trial. But when Derek testified, when her partner betrayed her to save himself, she finally showed emotion. She screamed at him across the courtroom, "You coward! You weak, pathetic coward!" The judge had her removed from the courtroom. On the day of sentencing, I was allowed to read a victim impact statement. I stood at the podium, looking at Amanda, and spoke from my heart. "You did not just kill my son. You tried to kill me too. Not physically, but in every other way. You tried to erase me, to destroy my reputation, to make everyone believe I was crazy. You tried to take my dignity, my home, my community. You tried to make me disappear." I paused, gathering my strength. "But you failed. Thomas saved me. Even in death, my son protected me. He knew what you were. He knew what you had done. And he made sure that when you tried to destroy me, the truth would come out." I looked directly into Amanda's eyes. "You stole my son from me. You stole the years we should have had together. You stole his future, his children he might have had, his life that was just beginning. For that, I will never forgive you. But I will also never let what you did define me. I will honor Thomas by living the life he wanted me to have." The judge sentenced Amanda to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. 3 consecutive life sentences, 1 for each murder. Derek received 35 years for his role in the crimes. As they led Amanda away in shackles, she looked at me one last time. This time, there was no hatred in her eyes. There was nothing. She was empty. The legal proceedings continued for months. The house was eventually awarded to me through a civil judgment. All of Amanda's assets were frozen, and most were eventually forfeited. My mother's ring was found in a safe deposit box Amanda had rented under a false name. It was returned to me, and I wore it every day. I sold the house on Maple Drive. I could not live there, not after everything that had happened, but I used the money, along with the insurance payout and my trust fund, to build something meaningful. I purchased a beautiful home with a garden, something I had always dreamed of. It was a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, with roses in the front yard and a vegetable garden in the back. I established the Thomas Michael Porter Memorial Scholarship Fund, with an endowment of $500,000. The scholarship was for young men and women studying business and finance, the field Thomas had loved. Every year, 5 students would receive full tuition scholarships. It was my way of keeping Thomas's memory alive, of helping others achieve the dreams he never got to fulfill. I paid off all of Linda's debts and helped her buy a small house near mine. She protested at first, but I insisted. "You saved my life," I told her. "Let me do this." I started volunteering with the Senior Advocacy Center, helping elderly people who were facing financial exploitation or abuse. I used my story to teach others about the warning signs, about how to protect themselves. I spoke at community centers and churches. I helped at least a dozen people escape situations similar to mine. My net worth, between the trust, the insurance, the house sale, and recovered assets, was approximately $4.3 million. It was more money than I had ever imagined having. But it was not the money that mattered. It was the freedom, the security, the ability to help others. 1 year after Amanda's conviction, I stood at Thomas's grave on the anniversary of his death. The cemetery was quiet, peaceful. The grass was green and well maintained. I had commissioned a new headstone, one that told the truth. "Thomas Michael Porter, beloved son, brave protector, your love saved me." I placed fresh flowers on the grave, white roses, his favorite. I knelt in the grass, not caring about the dirt on my knees, and spoke to him as I had done so many times before. "You saved me, Thomas. Even after you were gone, you protected me. You left me breadcrumbs, clues, a trail to follow. You made sure the truth would come out. You are the bravest person I have ever known." The sun broke through the clouds, warming my face. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the oak tree shading his grave. "I want you to know that I'm okay now. More than okay. I have a home, I have friends, I have purpose. I'm helping people just like you helped me. The scholarship fund awarded its first students last month. 5 brilliant young people who will have opportunities because of you. I touched the headstone, running my fingers over his name. I understand now why you did what you did. You were trapped, just like I was trapped later. She threatened me to control you, and you sacrificed everything to keep me safe. That's love, Thomas. That's pure, selfless love. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but they were not tears of despair anymore. They were tears of gratitude and pride. I miss you every single day. I miss your laugh, your terrible jokes, the way you used to call me every Sunday morning. I miss watching you grow into the man you became. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm not broken. You taught me that love is stronger than evil, that truth is stronger than lies, that even in our darkest moments, we can find the light. I stood up slowly, my arthritis bothering me less these days thanks to better medical care I could now afford. Rest now, my sweet boy. Your mother is going to be okay. I'm going to live the life you wanted for me. I'm going to honor your memory every single day. I'm going to make sure that what happened to you saves others, that your story helps people recognize the signs, protect themselves, fight back. I looked around the cemetery, at the other graves, at the living people visiting their lost loved ones. Life continued. Pain existed, but so did healing. And Thomas, I want you to know something important. When I was at my lowest, when I was sleeping in cars and motel rooms, when everyone had abandoned me, when I had nothing left, I learned something profound. I learned that my worth was never in money or houses or possessions. My worth was in here. I touched my heart. In my love for you, in my capacity to endure, in my refusal to give up. Amanda tried to destroy me because she thought I was weak. She thought taking everything from me would break me. But she was wrong. A bird landed on Thomas's headstone. A cardinal, bright red against the gray stone. Cardinals were supposed to be visitors from heaven, or so the saying went. I chose to believe it. I'm going to keep living, Thomas. I'm going to keep loving. I'm going to keep fighting for people who need help. And every time I do, I'll think of you, my brave, beautiful boy, who loved his mother enough to save her from beyond the grave. I kissed my fingers and pressed them to his name on the stone. Goodbye for now, my darling, until we meet again. As I walked away from the gravesite, the sun fully emerged from the clouds, bathing the cemetery in golden light. I felt different than I had a year ago, stronger, clearer, more certain of who I was and what I was capable of. I had learned that sometimes we have to lose everything to discover we were never truly powerless at all. We just forgot our own strength. Amanda had tried to erase me, but instead, she had revealed me. In trying to destroy me, she had forced me to remember who I really was. A survivor, a mother, a woman of substance and depth. The money had not saved me. Thomas's planning had not saved me, not really. What saved me was something Amanda could never take. My refusal to surrender, my determination to seek truth, my love for my son that burned brighter than her hatred. I drove home to my house, with the garden, where Linda was waiting for me. We would have tea and talk about the new volunteers we were training at the advocacy center. Tomorrow, I would meet with the scholarship recipients and hear about their dreams. Next week, I would speak at a conference about financial elder abuse. My life was full again, full of purpose and meaning and connection. Amanda was in prison, Derek was in prison, and I was free. Truly free, in ways I had never been before. As I pulled into my driveway, I looked at my home, my sanctuary, and felt profound gratitude. Not gratitude for the money or the possessions, but gratitude for the journey, for learning that I was stronger than I ever knew, for discovering that love really does conquer evil, even when it seems impossible. Thomas had given me one final gift, the chance to become the person I was always meant to be. A fighter, an advocate, a survivor, a woman who refused to disappear. And that, I realized, was the greatest inheritance of all. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever faced a situation where someone tried to silence you or make you feel powerless? How did you find the strength to keep going? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is struggling right now. If this story moved you, please give it a like. Subscribe to hear more stories of survival, strength, and justice. And please, share this with anyone who needs to be reminded that they are stronger than they know, that truth always finds a way, and that even in our darkest hours, hope remains. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brings you comfort, courage, and the reminder that you are never as powerless as others want you to believe. May you find your own strength when you need it most, and may you always remember that love, truth, and justice will prevail.